Hey everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make a minestrone soup and then Italian grilled cheese for lunch. So I'm going to start by adding just a little bit of oil into my Dutch oven. You can use a sauce pot if you want to. I just love making soups in Dutch ovens because they retain the heat really well and they provide a nice even cook. And then I'm going to chop up one onion. I do my ends, and then I'm going to do a slice down the middle and then peel off that outer layer. And a slice through, and I'm just going to do a nice dice to it because I don't want my onions to be too big in my soup because then they're not as easy to eat. Got that one diced up, and quick dice on the other half. Okay, and I'm going to turn my oil up to about a medium high, so about a 7. And I'm going to throw in my onions into my pan so that they can start sauteing up. There, I've got a little straggler right there. And now I'm going to chop up some celery. And this, even if you don't like celery, you want to add it to your soups because they add a just wonderful flavor that you just can't replicate. And cut the other side because I'm cutting off my ends there because they're dried. If you're using a big stalk with the leaves on it, you can just cut it all up. Make sure you rinse it first because sometimes there's dirt down in the middle. And then cut up those leaves and add those leaves as well because they have a nice flavor in them. I just can get this bulk like this at Costco, so this is just what I have. And I'm just going to dice or slice them pretty thin, just like that, just so they're just easier to manage and the flavor really sets into my broth. I think about, I'm making a soup here, so I don't want any of my pieces to be bigger than what I would want as a single bite in my mouth. So I'm going to put my onion or my celery in here. And then I'm going to get a little spoon out and just give it a bit of stirs to make sure that it's all getting coated in the oil as well, so it'll crisp up nice. I'm going to use my spatula, like my spoon, to just break up any onion pieces. Whoa, they went flying. Any onion pieces that are still like sticking together. As you saute them, the onions will start to break apart. So I'm just going to break these up here. Perfect. And then I'm going to prep. I have some fresh green beans, so I'm going to prep these. My my refrigerator outside got a little bit cold, so they froze a little, but they're still good. Hey, buddy. Oh no, is it not working? I'm sorry. You can use something else. It's nap time, bud. No, it's okay. Do you want to help me cook? No? Okay. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to work, buddy. Here. You try that now, bud. It's time for quiet time. It's nap time, buddy. And then I'm going to do... It's not working? Okay. I don't know what we'll have to do, buddy. We'll have to try to grab something else. Try to grab Evie's, maybe. And then I'm going to chop up some green beans. Real good, just like this. I know it's not working, buddy. I don't know what's going on. The signal's not working. And I'm going to chop up my green beans into nice, like 1-inch pieces, just like this. Let's see. Did you get out of it? Let's try this now. It's still not working, buddy. It's just not working. We can't do it. Okay, I'm going to chop these up. And I'm going to save them to the side because I don't want to put them in my soup just quite yet. I'm going to save them and have them right here. And I'm going to stir up my soup just like this, or my sauteed onions and celery. And since these are starting to get nice and hot and they're sauteing up nicely, I'm going to put in some fresh, mild Italian sausage. So I have a big package right here. I'm not going to use all of this, but I just get it in bulk at Costco. And I'm going to take out, thought they would come out. There we go. Woo! 4 sausage links. And then I'll use the rest for another recipe. And I'm going to use my kitchen shears. And I'm going to cut these up and put them in here so that they can cook with the onions. And I'm just doing nice thin slices because I want them to cook up nice so that they aren't too large when you try to eat them in your soup. And this is going to be our protein in our minestrone soup. You could also use just ground Italian sausage or hamburger if you wanted to. I like to use Italian sausage over hamburger because I think it has a nice, adds a nice flavor. So I'm just going to cut it up. You could also squeeze it out of the casing if you wanted. I kind of like the casing on there because it makes like little sausage balls in the soup. So they're kind of like a little meatball. And I'm just going to cut them. And one more. So I've got 2 in there. I would say 4 of these are probably equal close to a pound of Italian sausage. Give or take a couple ounces. And get this nice cut up. Okay, and then I have 1 more that I'm going to cut up in here, and then I'm going to give it a nice, good stir. And you can see the vegetables are already kind of steaming nicely. I've got a nice steam over it. And I'm going to stir it just like that. Perfect. And now I'm going to cut up some carrots. I'm going to move my green beans to the side because I like to throw those in towards the end because they cook faster than the onions and the celery and the carrots. So I'm going to get a couple handfuls of baby carrots. You could use big carrots and just cut them smaller. These are just for convenience. I don't have to peel them. And I'm just going to just slice them up fairly small, like that, so that and try to keep an even cut size so that they all cook evenly. You don't want them to be too big or they won't soften up while the rest of your stuff is cooking. I'm going to cut these. And a bit more. If you've never made a minestrone before, it's a really simple soup. It has kind of a tomato broth that has some nice Italian seasoning to it. And then it's just filled with really whatever vegetables you have in your fridge. And some beans and some noodles. There we go. I'm going to just grab my carrots here. I can throw my carrots in there. And I'm going to give it a good stir, just like this. And then I have some Italian herbs paste. And I'm going to use this in my soup to flavor it today. You could use dried Italian herbs. I just found that the fresh paste makes a nicer broth that has a smoother texture. And I'm just going to give it a good squeeze. That will probably be close to a tablespoon. And I'm going to give it a really good stir to try to get flavor all the vegetables that are in here. And the heat will help the herbs really bring out their flavor. And you can see my sausage is starting to turn brown. It's starting to cook up, which is what we want. And then I'm going to throw in just a nice thing. This is probably a half a teaspoon of minced garlic. Just to add a little bit more flavor. I meant to add that in with my onions, but I kind of forgot about it. But it's okay, you can add it in now. And I'm going to give this a nice, good stir. Making sure that it doesn't stick at the bottom of my pot. Because sometimes if you let it stick, it will burn and then you can get a little burnt taste to your soup if you're not careful to remember to stir it. Perfect. This is what I wanted. And now I'm going to get my thing. I'm going to add some water to it and some chicken bouillon. So let me grab my measuring cup. right here. You want to help me pour this into my soup, buddy? Oh, you have your camera on. Are you taking pictures? Yeah? You taking video? You want to help me? You want to get your helper and help me cook? Yeah, you want to help me cook? No, you don't want one? I don't want to. And I'm going to pour in, I have 4 cups of water right here. You want me to see if I can fix it for you? I don't know if I can. Here, let's see what we have. You were taking videos. So I have my 4 cups of water that I've added into the thing. Let me see. Maybe my husband can do this. And hey, I'm going to see if I can turn this around so I can hold it. Well, I'll let you see it. I'm going to stir this in here. I've got my 4 cups of water in here. And now I'm going to add a big heaping spoon of chicken base or chicken bouillon. This will add a nice flavor to the broth. I like to use this over just straight up broth because the broth is not seasoned as much. So I'm going to add a nice big scoop of this into it. And so I'm having to videotape myself today because little Teddy, he is very tired and we had him doing some quiet time and he just wanted some help and some love right now. So we'll see if he's going to take there. But I just added a big heaping spoon of chicken bouillon in here. Let me see if I can get a little bit more of it out. My jar is just about empty. And this will add a nice flavor to it. It also means I don't really have to add any salt to my broth because this has enough salt in it. I'm going to add that and I'm going to let it simmer and cook the carrots and the onions and peppers. And now I'm going to add in 2 cans of diced tomatoes. These are just plain. You could get the ones that are seasoned with like oregano and basil. Those will also work really well with the minestrone. I'm going to pour the whole can in with the juices, so no straining there, because I want those nice tomato juices in my soup. And then I'm going to pour my second one in, just like this, so that I have a nice, good tomato-based broth. And we're going to let this start to simmer, and a little bit I'll add those chopped up green beans, and then towards the end I'll add some fresh spinach towards the end, but I was going to add that last because spinach wilts super fast in soups, so I like to add it towards the end. While we're waiting for this to cook and to simmer, I'm going to start prepping our grilled cheese. So just let me clean up. Today we're going to make an Italian grilled cheese. So I'm going to use a mixture of shredded Italian cheeses and Genoa salami and some pesto. Clear this out so you guys have plenty of space to see. Here. And then I'm going to do it on some sourdough bread. Normally I would use fresh sourdough bread that I bake myself, but while we were on vacation last week, my starter, I forgot to throw it in the fridge before we left, and it molded. And so I'm making a new starter right now. It's on my page. You can follow along, but it takes 7 days to ferment. So I'm going to make 2 big Italian grilled cheese. So I need to start off with my butter, and I'm going to use my butter knife. This is one of my favorite kitchen things that gets used every single day. It's just a wooden paddle type thing, but it is great for spreading butter. And I'm just going to coat one side of each of my slices of bread. And then you're going to want to use softened butter for this. I always leave a stick of butter out on the counter because if I don't, it's such a pain to try to then soften the butter in the microwave, and it's impossible to spread butter that's straight out of the refrigerator. And now I'm going to spread that nicely, and these are going to be the outsides of my grilled cheese, which I'll be placing on the direct heat of the skillet. So now I'm going to flip them over, and on the inside, instead of spreading butter, I'm going to spread a little bit of pesto. So I'm using Rama's basil pesto. This one, or Costco's Kirkland pesto. are my favorite for the store-bought pestos. I think they have a nice flavor without either being too pine nutty or too after like tasty. I think they have a nice well-balanced flavor, and they're not too salty or too oily. And I'm just gonna use a spoon right here, and I'm just gonna spread a little bit on each side of my bread so that it will melt with the cheeses, and it will add a nice pesto-y flavor to my grilled cheese. You could also make your pesto fresh. In the summertime, I'll make my pesto homemade when I have a lot of fresh basil growing, but you do need a lot of basil for it to make at least a significant, like a good amount to use. So I'm gonna make sure, do a good covering on all of them, spread it up, and now I'm gonna go over to my soup that is starting to boil. I'm gonna give it a good stir, like this. And then I just might turn it down a teensy bit because I don't want it to get too much of a boil so that it bubbles over, but I want to have a nice rolling boil. Now, while I have these on here, I'm going to put a layer of, I'm using pizza cheese, which is a mixture of mozzarella, provolone, and Asiago cheese. It has a good melt to it, but you could also use just straight up mozzarella or fresh mozzarella. And I'm going to just coat the first little bottom half of this one, and then the bottom half of that one. I'll turn this guy down a little bit more. He's starting to bubble up real nicely. I'll give him a little stir over here. And then I'm going to take some Genoa salami. I get this just in the deli. You can get it fresh from the deli. I buy this in the deli area of Publix. So it's not in the meat and like sandwich meat area, but the actual deli area. And it's one of our favorite. I like this one as well as the hard salami. And I'm going to take off and I just pull out. And I'm going to make this cheese a little bit more even. And then I'm going to just put a couple layers of salami. So about 4 pieces per each sandwich. You don't need too much. And this big one might need 5. But you just want to be able to have a good bite with each one. Perfect. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with a little bit more of that cheese blend that I'm using. You could also use just sliced mozzarella if you have it. This is just what I had in my refrigerator. So I always try to use up what we have first before buying new stuff. We use this over the holidays to make some homemade pizzas, and which were delicious, by the way. Cover it nicely, and then we can take our top one. We're gonna put the basil side, or the pesto side down, right on top like this. And then I can move them over to my skillet over here. And I'm gonna turn my skillet on to about a medium heat until it warms up. And that's gonna start toasting up my grilled cheese. I'm gonna give this a nice, good stir over here. I'm gonna taste it and see if I need to add any more seasonings before I add my next set of ingredients, because I want time for the seasonings to boil in first. So I'm gonna get a ladle. It's gonna be very hot, so make sure at home you blow it a lot when you're testing your own soup. And always try, if you test it with a plastic spoon or like a ladle or something like that that's not metal, it won't be as hot. Perfect. I think I just want to add a pinch of pepper to it. And so I'm going to grab some pepper over here. And just a pinch. This is probably maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. Not much. A little goes a long way, especially in a broth, because it will stay a lot on the top of the liquid. And I'm going to get a good stir. And now I'm going to put in some of my green beans. These are fresh green beans that I just chopped up in here. They're nice, and then I'm gonna give them, oh, I got a little straggler piece of cheese from our grilled cheese. That's fine. I'm gonna give them a nice, good stir. I'm gonna let these cook. Perfect. And I'm going to, I have a can of Great Northern beans, or you could use cannelli beans or white navy beans. I prefer any of the white beans in the soup, but you could also use a kidney bean. I think white beans are more delicate, and so they don't have a tough skin. I'm gonna go over to my sink because I don't want like if you look in here, the can when you open up, it has a very starchy broth or a liquid in it. That's just the starches from the beans having soaked. I don't want that in my soup. It will give it a kind of a weird consistency. So I'm gonna just pour my cans of beans out over here, and then make sure I got them all out. I'm gonna give them a really good rinse to get any of that starchy water off of. And anytime you're using canned beans in a recipe, they're gonna say to drain and rinse them. You very rarely will use the whole liquid of the canned beans. Okay, so now I have these. Perfect. So I have them nice and rinsed in here, and I'm going to add them to our soup. You could also, like a minestrone, you can also add some noodles to it if you want. I would recommend either the shells or the little tiny circles or macaroni noodles. But I prefer mine without the noodles in it. So today I'm just gonna leave them out and just have the beans and the meat. But it is a very hearty soup as it is, so you don't really need them. But if you're a noodle lover, feel free to pop those in. And they just will need to cook in the broth for like 7 minutes or whatever, you know, the cook time on it is. You typically want a smaller noodle so it's not so hefty in your soup. But I have those stirring in over here. And now I'm gonna let this cook and simmer. I'm gonna come over to my grilled cheeses that have been on their skillet and grab a spatula out. I'm gonna use a nice thin spatula. This will be good for scooping underneath the things. So we can check on it and see how it's thin. It's starting to melt up. It's nice. My skillet I can see is starting to get warm, so I'm gonna just turn it up a little bit more. And I'll check this one in case there. But I'm gonna try not to move these as much because the shredded cheese, which is not optimal for grilled cheeses, does like to fall out. But I would normally use a sliced cheese, but this is what we had, and I am a firm believer of trying to repurpose our extra ingredients. We used some of this cheese last night in the lasagna we made. I believe the video is on our page now, but we made fresh lasagna with fresh noodles that you can buy from the store, and a salad and some strawberries and some yummy homemade garlic bread. So I'm just wanting to reuse that. I also used the pesto in my lasagna. So it's kind of just repurposing the ingredients that I have around. Let's give this guy a good stir. And now that I have the green beans cooking in here, I'm gonna add a little bit of my spinach. I'm gonna add my spinach in some batches because I'm gonna put a big handful in and it's going to fill it up, but within a minute or two, it's going to wilt down. So I've just got some fresh baby spinach. You could also use kale, but kale, you'd want to chop it up and then cook it for a little bit longer before it could get tender. Spinach, I think, is great. I prefer baby spinach when I'm cooking just because it's a little bit more delicate, but you could also use regular spinach. So I've got a big handful. I'm going to put it on top, get those little escape artists. And now I'm just gonna slowly tuck it in, let them wilt, and then I'll add another handful of spinach. Minestrone is a great soup that is loaded with lots of vegetables. It's really pretty much anything that you can find in your refrigerator or can make it. You can also use fresh tomatoes. I like to use the canned tomatoes because they have a nice broth to them that comes out. Okay, let me check on our grilled cheese. I see we're getting a good sizzle. Oh, this was perfect. I'm gonna flip this guy real quick. You see, we have that. You got a little bit of the basil peeking through. You can see how this guy's looking. This side needs a little bit more. But you can hear him sizzle. The cheese is sizzling on there, but it's doing nice melt on it. And here, I think I'm about ready for another handful of spinach. And I'm just gonna try to sprinkle it evenly over the top so that it's easier to stir in and that the noodles or the spinach doesn't clump together and stick together, and then you just have like big spinach chunks in your soup. I want it to be dispersed as much as possible. And I'm gonna just poke it in until it's completely submerged. Now I can give it a nice stir. Let's see if this guy is turning around, he's ready to flip. Yep, and have a nice thing on there. As you can see, it's got a nice crispy crust. When you're making grilled cheese, I recommend that I'm using sourdough, but use a sourdough or a crusty Italian, or you want a hearty bread. You want one that's thick and dense because that will toast up and crisp nicely for it. Give this another little stir. Perfect. And then I'm just gonna do one more handful of spinach because even though you can see it a lot right here, this is gonna wilt down pretty quickly and it won't be as abundant in there. So I'm just gonna do one more and I'm gonna really try to put it around. Perfect. And now, and see if I have any escapees right there. Good. And then I'm just gonna poke it into the broth, just like this. Perfect. And now we're gonna come check over here. I can hear it sizzling. Oh, we're getting a nice thing. We're almost done. It's got a nice sizzle on it. I'm gonna actually turn because this side of my pan is cooking more than that one. I'm gonna turn it down a little, but we are just about ready here. Okay. Give this a good stir. Perfect. I'm gonna really try to push the spinach down to the bottom so it gets all dispersed throughout my soup. Perfect. And a good shake. And now I'm gonna turn the heat off of my soup because if you look at it, it is done. And now I'm gonna get ready to plate because our grilled cheese is just about done. It's already starting to get the nice melt on it. So let me get a plate, and let me get a bowl, and a nice spoon for our things. And I can now plate it for you guys. So I'm gonna start with my soup, and I'm gonna bring my thing over here and get some of the good veggie chunks in there. And now I'm gonna get in just a little bit of the broth, pour over top just like this. And then the trick to just having the best minestrone soup is to give it a nice sprinkle of cheese on the top. This is going to melt into your soup and it adds a nice little touch to it. And now I'm thinking my grilled cheeses. This one looks right here. It looks just about ready. Let's see, do I have a good melt on here? Yep, you can see as it's going there, it's stretching apart. You can see the cheese. So I'm gonna take this guy. Oh look, he's perfect on that side. And I'm gonna cut him apart. Just like this. And you have a perfect. You can see the pesto in there with the cheese and the Italian sausage. And then my favorite thing is I dunk it in my soup broth. Excellent. Please like and subscribe. I cook every day. We post our videos on there, but I like to do a soup and sandwich every day at lunchtime. Thanks for joining us today.